zurück mit
Okay, I just have to share that I'm struggling right now. Like you know this because you're my friend. I have irrational fears. My very good friends know some of my irrational fears, and they are quite irrational. Top being my irrational fear of spontaneous combustion. I mean, this has been since I was like a kid. I remember there was a book in the library, and now it's kind of funny. I questioned, like, should that book have been in the library? But it was a cool book. I remember in sixth grade. And it had like weird conspiracy theories. It had stuff on UFOs. It had stuff on Bigfoot. It had paranormal stuff. And it was a thick book. It was like a pretty thick book, but it was in the library. And I kept checking it out like over and over, like super obsessed with all those things. And so I've kind of quelled, but I used to have an irrational fear of Bigfoot. And I used to have an irrational fear of Bigfoot while living in the middle of a jungle, because that's where I was living at the time that I was checking out this book. And I've shown you pictures, and I've shown other people pictures where it's like my house was like on this peninsula on this mountaintop, and then 350 degrees around me was just jungle. And sometimes you'd open the front door and there's like just a pack of monkeys, and you don't fight them, you don't shoo them, you just go back in the house and wait for them to dissipate.
Just close the door, and then you try again an hour later and see if it's safe.
That was a legitimate reason. Okay, you see, it's happening again. So my current irrational fear is that my home's second floor will collapse at any moment. This is a huge irrational fear. Is there anything to back any of these reasons? Anything to point? Like, has some building inspector come? Nope, not at all. It's just an irrational fear I have. And so there's a house, and the mic might pick it up, but there's a house about 100 meters away, and it's being torn down. They're building and they're extending the train line. And as they're tearing down the house, it's making everything here shake. So it's feeding into my irrational fear of, with enough vibrations, this at any moment I could just drop out of this video. Boom, gone.
I kind of want that to happen now.
Oh, jeez. I should have somebody come on here and explain to me why. And I think that I'm like a fairly intelligent kind of person. I read a lot. I'll say not intelligent, well read. Like, I like statistics. I like data. That's how I like formulate opinions, decisions. I need statistics and data. I think that's the more scientific approach.
So right now, what do you think the probability of your entire second floor collapsing?
50-50. And you knew that was going to be the answer, because
I did.
That's my literally my that's my whole thing on everything. It's 50-50.
Yeah, happens or doesn't.
And and as you being a math person, you're the math dude. For a long time, you were just like the math dude.
Now I'm the intern dude.
Now you're the intern dude. I mean, am I far off? I mean, I think statistically, that's a pretty sound 50-50. No matter
Yes
what,
and no.
Everything is 50-50.
Yes and no. It will happen or it won't happen. But if you think, how many times have you been there? How many days, how many hours? And then how many times has it happened already? It hasn't happened 50% of the time. That's what 50-50 is. That's probability. 50%
It's
it
true
happens,
too. That
50 it
is
doesn't.
true.
But I think that's a very logical, stoic, scientific method of thinking about it, whereas yours is a very much philosophical. If it's going to happen at some point, then it is 50-50 that it happens now, which is probably not going to quell your fears of it happening now.
It's just that it's 100 meters away, and my house is
Yeah.
shaking. Um, and I've lived here like close to 15 years in this house, and this irrational fear is only maybe the last 2 years. It's come out of really nowhere. It's come out of
Yeah.
somewhere. It came out with I found that uh, only part of the second level has concrete under the wood, and part
Maybe
of
you
it
need to find
doesn't.
where that concrete is and put some tape down so that you know where to sit. So if it does all collapse, you're still sitting there with your microphone and your camera, and it's just everything collapsing around you, which would be, I don't know, would that be cooler than seeing you disappear? I don't
That
know.
would be like the end of Fight Club. Just everything is collapsing behind.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate. It makes my teeth shake. It shakes my
Yeah.
teeth.
Or another way of thinking about it is if
That's a
it's
nod. That's a nod. That's an Easter egg nod. I don't know if it's called an Easter egg nod. Me saying it shakes my teeth.
an eggnog.
Some people will get it.
Um,
Some people get why I said it shakes my teeth.
if it is going to happen, if your house is going to collapse,
No,
the
it's not the
chances,
house. Not the house, just the second floor.
sorry, if the second floor specifically is going to collapse, then the chances of that happening every day increase, right?
No.
Because it hasn't happened.
No,
Why?
not in my world. Not in my world. It's just because it's just like it either is or it's not. It's either going to collapse or it's not going to collapse.
Okay.
Every moment, it's a new assessment. Every moment is a new assessment. I'm not
So the
assessing the future. I mean, at any given moment,
okay.
at any given moment, at any given time, whether it's the future, if you're looking and say, do you think it's going to collapse in a week? It's 50-50. Do you think it's going to collapse in an hour? 50-50. Like I just kind of always look at life like that. Everything's just 50-50. So
So how far ahead would you look? If it's 50-50, that makes sense to me if you say it's 50-50, it's going to happen right now. But if it's 50-50, it's going to happen in a week or a year or 10 years, how far ahead would you be thinking?
infinite,
And
infinitely.
nothing,
I mean, infinitely, it would just be 50-50.
and nothing that's happened before will influence that.
No.
Whoa,
So
that's
for
quite
a mathematician, is that kind of a difficult to work out from a mathematical standpoint?
not if
Is
I'm
it
a mathemat.
frustrating?
It's not frustrating. It's understanding you and how your logic works.
So let's deal with the problem at hand, and
Yeah,
let's try to get it to the next day. And the next day, let's start over. Let's deal with the problem at hand. So I think that's kind of where the whole 50-50 came. It's like it's a 50-50 chance whether we wake up tomorrow. We all go to
yeah,
bed at night. We all go to sleep. Some pass out, some sleep soundly, some are insomniatic. But at some point we get some rest, or if not, we die because we need rest. So we all sleep, and it's a 50-50 chance every day that we get up.
yeah. That's very true.
And for me, when I look at life that way and I wake up and I'm like, made it another day. Let's go check out cool stuff. Let's do something rad. Let's make it a rad day. Because tonight when I go to bed, it's going to be a 50-50 chance again whether I wake up tomorrow. So let's make each day rad. So I love the idea of 50-50. But I understand math statistics of there's a number of possibilities.
Yeah,
But for this, it's 50-50. Like if we're talking quantum mechanics, of course it can't really be that, but maybe it can. There's a 50-50 chance if you go into a black hole, you exit out a white hole into a different universe.
yeah.
I mean,
And
that's just it. There's a 50-50 chance that a God exists.
a god, many
A
gods.
God.
Many
or
gods.
many gods. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just 50-50 for everything. So it's like, I like to keep an open mind. It's like, and I've referenced this before, like it's one of my favorite quotes where Carl Sagan said he didn't have evidence that God exists, but he didn't have evidence that God didn't exist. And I think that that's a pretty cool approach to life. Just, you're not saying anybody else wrong for whatever they believe in, and
Yeah.
keep an open mind. And I think that life is so much, I think that you have better conversations in life. You have better interactions in life when you have that mindset, because when you're open to other people, they're open to you, and you have better conversations and you have better understanding. And if we don't understand one another on this planet, like when I'm looking at the planet and all these different, great videos that NASA puts out, ESA puts out of Earth, of the galaxy, of the planet, it's like, for as far as we could see, we're the only planet that we know of that's got, this intelligent life. I don't doubt that there's intelligent life out there. Not at all. I mean, just even though here's where your thing proves me wrong, because this is not a 50-50. This is where I would say the probability is too high to not have intelligent life out there. So in this kind of case, I would just say the probability is too high. But what are the statistical numbers on that? I don't know. I'm just looking up at the sky and I'm like, there's trillions upon trillions of stars out there. It just seems ridiculous that we would be the only life form. So with that said, I think that in a world lately where it seems that there's so much trying to divide us, I think it's always really cool when we try to look at the things that are really similar. And the basis of everything is that we're earthlings. And I love telling kids this. They're like, oh, what are you? Are you British? Are you, American? And I'm like, I'm an earthling. When people ask me like, oh, what are you? When I was a kid, people used to ask like, what are you? And I'd say, I'm half Thai. And they're like, oh, I love Taiwan. I've always wanted to go to Taiwan. And so then I went through this whole stage of like, okay, well, I'm then going to say I'm half Siamese, right? And
I
you can
love
only
cats.
imagine how that went. You were a conjoined twin? Yes, totally.
There's another one of me out there.
Do you know that Cheng, and I think their name is Cheng and Eng, they were not even Siamese. I mean, they were what made the term Siamese twins.
Mm.
But Cheng, I think it's Eng and Cheng, they were actually from mainland China.
Mm.
I don't think it was like mainland China called back then, but they were from China.
Yeah.
So they weren't even Siamese,
Yeah.
Siamese.
Yeah. Well, even that's kind of interesting. A misnamed misnamed history.
Right.
Yeah.
And yet, you know what? Here's an interesting kind of thing to add to the Sayonara Cupcake podcast. Think about the number of bands that reference Siam.
Yeah.
Echo and the Bunnymen in the song Lips Like Sugar. The Pogues have Summer in Siam, great song. Frank Black has a song called the King of Siam. I mean, there's a lot of references. It's kind of an exotic term.
Yeah. Almost mystical.
Yes. I love saying Siam.
Yeah.
I love to say Siam. But
I can just hear that Echo and the Bunnymen lyric in my head now.
so today I'm so happy to have you on here. Today I have Rab Allan, Dr. Rab Allan from Las Vegas. Desmond probably doesn't even know this story, but it's funny how you and I became friends, and it's actually through my son, other forces. But I was talking to a mutual friend, Alan McGee, a couple years ago, about 7 years ago, and he was asking me what kind of music my son was listening to, because he was making all these playlists on Spotify at the time, and we were just kind of joking. And I said he's obsessed with this band called Glasvegas, and he was just like, I'm managing Las Vegas. And it was like, what? That's so crazy. So, he's like right away. He just said, I'll have James get in touch with your son. And so that's kind of how we met. And now you guys, we have snails named after um, the Allen clan.
Yeah.
Lots of snails. So how are you doing? Thank you so much for coming. Rab is like one of these people right away that said, yeah, totally do it.
Of course, yeah. Do you know what? It's just like strange. This is the first time we've ever actually like spoke in person, and we've known each other for
Yes.
this long. So
Right.
maybe like a little voice note back and forward. But yeah, I'm good. It's the weekend here. It's the morning. My son has got a little cold, so my wife took him out. So yeah, this is like really peaceful for me. Really
Yeah.
peaceful. It's good.
One of the reasons, and I've told everybody this, and I don't know if you've had a chance, I'm not going to assume that anybody's listened to the podcast, but one of the reasons I started the podcast was just thinking about my son turning 13 and talking to him about music and talking to his friends about music and thinking that was that age that I started like totally liking and digging music. Do you remember how old you were when you started like paying attention to music?
So my mum always had music on in the house.
Yeah.
It was always something. It wasn't cool. It wasn't like she liked like Whitesnake and like mad bands like that, right? So there's, and see if you listen back to some of our records, you can hear little things in it like Whitesnake and things like that. Quite mad. So I think I was probably about Angus's age, maybe about 12, and I had Top of the Pops on in the background, and I saw Oasis, and something just like something clicked for me, and that's when I was like, I think I want to do that. And before that, I'd always liked music, and I would sing along, and do all those kind of things. I think that was the moment for me. But like, it's so different now how people find music, you know. So like, so I don't know how kids find music now. I think it's like TikTok and things like that. Like, so is that how Angus finds music? What says? Or does he hear music through you? Or
yeah, I think that was one of the things that I was really wondering about, because he obviously finds music through me. Like when he was young, there was a period like after he was born where I didn't have time, and you probably understand this. You just don't have time when you have a small kid to like listen to music. You're just doing other things, and I didn't really realize that I'd forgotten or wasn't paying attention to music, but I was. And then when he got to be about 7 and he started like listening to stuff, I decided to give him my old brick, like I think it was 250 gig iPod. And so it had so much music on, and he just kind of scroll the wheel and find different things. And I remember at the time that Glasvegas came out, it was like 2008. We heard about it in Los Angeles. But I didn't, again, have time to listen to it. But I remember downloading it. I bought the album. I'm like, future thing I'm going to listen to, and just never got around to it. So it was about that time that he was discovering bands like you guys and other different bands. But then for a while, he like got out of music. He went through a whole thing of just discovering music, but then sports got more important and doing that kind of stuff. And then I think during COVID, it was just, we were home and we don't really watch TV very much. So we just always had music on, and that was a big thing. But I ask him now, how do you get music? It's usually from friends in a different way. A friend will send a song, or YouTube videos or stuff like that. It's really different from how we found music.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was thinking as well. I know, like, you used to have to go out and go into like Tower Records and listen to something in the headphones, see if you liked it. Now it's quite instant. I know it's such a different thing. Like, I don't know, like, is TikTok a big thing where you are? Do you have TikTok?
It's huge. We just downloaded it for the first time for Sayonara Cupcake.
Okay.
And it was crazy because, and I was telling Desmond this, we didn't have any friends, we didn't have any followers, but we uploaded a bunch of the different Sayonara Cupcake things. And immediately it was like 300 views, 200 views. I'm like, how is that even possible? Like, we don't even have a presence on here. So it's been really interesting in doing this. We made a lot of different platforms, not to just kind of inundate the whole market of Sayonara Cupcake, but I found that a lot of people are not cool with certain platforms. And so, and like some people are, and I totally respect that. Like some people protest Spotify because they don't think that artists are getting paid enough. And I totally get that. So I try to put it on a lot of different platforms, and it's interesting the numbers of what how people devour social media. It's really interesting where some get like 0 hits, but some, like one reel yesterday just got like 11,000 hits, and it's like, wow, that's so crazy. To me, that's
The
crazy.
whole analytics side of things is mad. Like I've been looking into that as well, and like how something can kick off in one thing. I mean, obviously TikTok's more younger people, which is
Yeah.
like that's what you want to crack. That sounds really bad. Facebook's more like older people, so like I still use Facebook. And I guess Instagram is somewhere in the middle. But I think with something like TikTok, if you can get some good numbers in that, that's like you're kind of cracking it. I think so. I know
I
that's what
think
Molly does. Like Molly tries to get like the TikTok thing. She pure pushes that. So
I think that I like that the fact that they're kind of differentiated for people. If you, my mom and all her older friends and all my old relatives use Facebook. And so I don't really use Facebook. And then she like sits there and she goes, you're not.
Instagram, I like Instagram. I like pictures. I'm more of like a kind of pictures guy. I think I like to see things like that. And then, but obviously because of the band, you need to be involved in all these different kind of platforms and stuff. But like I said, luckily Molly does a lot of that for us. So she just comes and says, "I need pictures. Send me pictures or videos," and then she goes away and does it all. So,
And I love her. We love Marley Allen in this house. Molly is James's wife,
yeah,
and it was funny because I was just telling her a joke the other day where I was saying something, and Angus got really excited. He's like, "Are you talking to Molly?" And I'm like, "You mean James?" He's like, "No, Molly." I was like,
yeah. Molly's amazing. She's super cool. Yeah, I saw them I saw James and Molly about 2 weeks ago. We had like a party in their garden,
"Yeah,
and it was really sunny. And Paul came down, and we all had the kids there. And James decided to start cutting the grass halfway through the party, and like everybody's getting like grass in their face and stuff. So, yeah, that's just like classic James.
yeah." Do you remember the first album you bought with your own money?
First album, I think it might have been a band called Embrace. I don't know if you've heard of them. They were like a Britpop band from like the first album was like 1996 or 1997, I think.
Yeah,
And it was like two brothers in the band, really like Oasis. They were from, I think they're from Manchester, down that way. And
yeah,
I still love them just now. Because so I grew up like super poor, so like we had no money to buy albums, so getting an album was like a luxury. You would get an album
yeah,
maybe like twice a year, like a birthday and a Christmas.
yeah,
So like a lot of what I would get would be like tapes. So I'd get people to copy albums onto tapes for me.
yeah,
And I remember having like all the Oasis albums, and like it would stop halfway through a song, and then the next side would start like halfway through. And it was just, but yeah, I think that was the first thing. I didn't buy a lot of music, so like I love Spotify for that reason. I have to be honest. I know you were saying like a lot of people are against it, but I think it's an absolutely amazing tool for
yeah,
people just to find something. And then if you're
yeah,
into it, then you can go and buy it. So that's the rule of thumb I've always used. If I find something I think is great, I'll still go and buy it, or I'll buy a t-shirt, or I'll buy whatever it is. But in terms of like a finding tool, that is like, yeah, I've always kind of championed it, even though I don't make any money from it, which you were
yeah.
saying. But yeah.
Can I jump in and ask you about Oasis, Rab,
Mhm.
and Embrace? What was it that appealed to you about Oasis? Was it the look? Was it the fact it was two brothers or two members of the same family? Or was it the sound? Or was it just the fact that, now I remember Oasis coming onto the scene and it was new, it was different.
Mhm. Well, the funny thing was, it wasn't a visual thing. So I had the TV on with Top of the Pops, but I wasn't watching it. I was playing a computer. So it must have been the audio. It must have been something that I heard that drew me in. Um, and for some reason after that, I was just hooked. Like I didn't have a guitar. I'd never played an instrument. But I remember thinking, I'm going to get a guitar. So my mum managed to get a guitar off someone, and that's kind of how that whole thing kicked off. But the funny story with that is we ended up touring with Oasis, and we were on tour with them when they broke up. So that was like a weird full circle moment thing, you
Yeah.
know. And I remember telling Noel that, and I said to him one night, like, thanks for this. And he was like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, I saw you on Top of the Pops, and, you know, this all happened. And he was just like, fuck off. And I was like, no, really, really, like, this is like real. So, yeah, that was like one of those really weird moments in life where, like, you get that opportunity to say thanks for something. Yeah, and then with the Embrace thing, again, I'm always attracted to like the sound of something. rather than a visual element or anything like that. I think it's like the melodies that always draw me in. So I think that was the thing with those bands, and all the bands I like are, I think, quite melodic sounding bands. That's the thing that kind of attracts me. So
I
Is that
definitely
why you
hear
went
it.
for guitar rather than drums or bass or keyboards?
do you know what? That's a really good question, and I've never thought of that before. I don't know why that was. I have to be honest. The drums were probably out because my mum would just have been like, "No chance." So that would probably not have been an option. And probably even from an early age, I knew that playing the guitar was cooler than the bass. Sorry, Paul. I probably knew that even then, but I knew that I didn't want to be a singer. So that kind of, that probably is what drew me to that as well. Um, yeah, that's fun. I've never thought of that before. Why I chose the guitar specifically? That's funny.
Yeah, because at one point you were in charge of the drums as well, right? You were programming the drums. Um, was that for sessions or was that for live shows as well?
So we didn't have a drummer. What we had a friend, Caroline, who couldn't play the drums. So when we started, I mean, we started a band in the most dysfunctional way. So it was basically like getting people together that you knew. So I went to school with a guy called Paul who played. He owned a bass. We knew no one else owned a bass. He was in the band. Right? It was these kind of silly little steps. We didn't have a drummer, but we had a friend called Caroline, and we used to go out all the time when we said, why don't you learn to play the drums? So she said, okay. So when we started, we thought what we'll do is we'll get a drum machine that you play along with until you get good enough, and then we can take the drum machine away. So like me and James used to sit, and James would like program in, it was like a Dr. Sample, I think, thing. Yeah, we did that for a while, and that ended up kind of being the sound of the band. Like the thing with the band is the band's always fallen into what its sound is meant to be. It's always through not being good enough, not having a drummer. Like our bass player had like the notes written in the back of his bass when we were doing gigs. It was like really like simple things. I think people think like I joke when I say things like that. Like it was so thrown together, but that was what created the sound and created the look for the band. Like when we used to tour at first, we used to always wear black clothes because it was easier. So if black clothes get dirty, you could just wear them again. Nobody could really tell. So that was just a thing that kind of worked. We could all share black clothes. It was like a lot of these things that people think were probably quite thought out and planned. It wasn't like that at all. Yeah, so the drum machine thing and all of that, it all came from a place of inexperience, I would say.
Do you think that Rab, and this is kind of actually maybe kind of along the field of things that you've been studying stuff. How do you think with the way that things are now, people are going to, are people going to still, I keep asking everybody, are people going to have those experiences, like you said, of kind of getting together, the touring, the early tours, just that kind of stuff? Because so many people are going straight to digital and
Yeah,
selling music that way.
yeah.
And a lot of people are blowing up, but they're not having that kind of same, I don't know, experience of, you know what I'm saying? Of just like that being on the road, not having any money, totally being starved. I don't know how many people have gone on tour. They've gone to go buy something and their van, all the instruments got stolen.
I know. So for me, I think I think a lot of the stuff that I'm seeing in the UK just now is coming from like a class perspective. So like it used to be that working class people could be in bands, they could afford to be in bands, they had the luxury of like touring at a really low level and having those 2 or 3 years to get good as a band before you get signed. But
Yeah.
now what's happening is you need, so like major record companies will not sign you if you don't have a certain amount of followers on TikTok, a certain amount of followers on Instagram, and all these different platforms, which is just bizarre. I understand it because it's all to do with streams, and that's how they make their money.
Yeah.
So I think what's happening is working class people are being priced out of being able to be in a band and sustain that career because you don't make any money at grassroots anymore. You don't. It's like, and I think that's the thing. Like you used to probably be able to tour at that level and not have jobs, but now you
Yeah.
need to be able to do that and have a job to sustain yourself. So this is nothing against, say, middle class people or people that come from money. It's not. They're just in a more fortunate position that they can spend more time doing that.
Yeah.
Like in our case with James, James didn't work. James would sit in his house and write songs for like 6 months. We wouldn't see him. He wouldn't have a life, but he could afford to do that because he was getting like job seekers at the time. So that's like if you don't work and you're on like benefits, so that he could do that. but like now it's just even difficult doing that. So
Yeah.
I think the experiences of people's like totally different. It's like here now, what I'm saying is that it's a bit like X Factor and Pop Idol and those programs. So the people that are coming out that are really big haven't had
Yeah.
those experiences playing live, so
Yeah.
they don't know how to do that. And then what happens is they're blown up so quickly, they're getting thrown onto these big stages, and they don't have like the tools to be able to kind of get that across. And I think that's a
Yeah.
shame for a lot of people. And then on the other hand, you've got people who are trying to do that and they're just not cutting through for whatever reason. But I think it's so different now, even from when we came out. I mean, we came out 2006, we get signed in 2008. I mean, that's 16 years, and the landscape is just like so different. And I think
And
what happens in those experiences, what you said is completely right. It's the experience thing of learning how to be in a band, learning how to play your instruments, learning how to do that craft thing and put on a good show. It's just gone. So
yeah, definitely for sure. You were just, I mean, I remember that you guys gained a lot of traction on MySpace, and I'm dating all of us here, but MySpace, I think, was a really great platform because so many bands that were not signed, that was a really great way for people to discover music.
yeah,
And so there's like a good part and a bad part, because that's almost the start of the downfall of people not getting paid for said music.
yeah,
Um, but like you said, I agree with you that if it wasn't for Spotify, there wouldn't be so many different bands that I discover. So there's good and bad, unfortunately,
yeah,
with that.
definitely.
What would you say, how would you say was the Glasgow music scene like when you were first starting, when you guys first started a band? Because I've talked to this about with some other musicians, because our San Diego music scene was really, really tight. And for years it was really, really tight. And then when I moved to other places, I found that that's not always the case. And so that's been another interesting thing for me to ask people. It's like, what was the music scene like where you were growing up?
So it was just a bit strange. So yeah, you would have, so there's bands like Camera Obscura and Bell and Sebastian who are like really big, but they're quite like twee. They're quite so. Personally, I think a lot of the music scene in Scotland is based in Glasgow. A lot of the bands live here, and a lot of the kind of industry stuff is here. So in the West End, you've kind of got the twee bands, which is like the Bell and Sebastians and Camera Obscura, and they don't really like mingle with like the rock and roll people or the people that do kind of heavier music. And then you've got bands like Mogwai who are fantastic, and other bands like that. But I wouldn't say there's like, I've never felt like there's a scene as
Hmm.
such. There's like little pockets of all different activity. And then when we came out, like people used to laugh at us at gigs because James would sing in a Scottish accent. People would say that's never going to work. You know, you sound like the Proclaimers. That's really embarrassing. Like your drummer's playing to a drum machine.
Yeah.
So it was funny, like in terms of that. So nothing ever happened for us in Glasgow. We didn't have any fans in Glasgow. We had nothing. So what we had to do was we bought a van and started touring the UK and just left Glasgow, which is mad because there's so many like great bands from here. So we would tour up and down the UK. We would put our music in MySpace, and then what happened was through doing that, then Glasgow kind of and Scotland kind of paid attention a little bit, and we would do like 2 nights in a place called Barfly, and the two of them sold out, which we were totally shocked at. Um, so it was we probably did it the opposite way from what other bands would do in terms of creating a buzz outside your city and then coming back.
Yeah.
And I still find that strange. Like people were like, you shouldn't sing in your own accent. I think they wanted that kind of mid-Atlantic thing that maybe bands like Simple Minds do, and you know that's a little bit more American sounding, but maybe a little bit more commercial and easy to sell.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, the thing that ended up being the most, prolific thing for the band has been James's voice and the way that
Yeah.
he can sing and his accent. And I mean, maybe you know this because you've got loads of friends in bands, but when we tour the world, people love the fact that he sings in a Scottish accent.
Yeah.
But I think that's a thing within Scotland in general is that people are quite apologetic for being a good band, or if you think you're in a good band, you shouldn't think you're in a good band. So
Yeah.
I used to say, I think my band's great, and people would be like, can't say
Yeah.
that. And it was like, well, why can't you say I think my band's good? Um,
Yeah.
so that Scotland's got this sense of like apologeticness, whereas if you go to like Manchester, the scene in Manchester is fantastic. You walk in a bar, they're playing bands from Manchester. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? You
Yeah.
go to Glasgow, it's not always the case, and I that has always baffled me. But yeah, this I think the scene thing in Glasgow's got better. There's definitely bigger pockets of artists now, really, really good bands. I love loads of cool stuff happening as well, like not your usual types of music. But back then in 2008, it was a little cliquey. You know, you
Yeah.
had to be like, invited into a little group, and we were just like, nah, not going to do that.
Yeah. Do you remember an album when you were younger? Was your, like, maybe your teen albums, whether you got it taped or whatever, that you just remember sitting there and everything kind of changing? Like, I was talking to Desmond, I was talking to my childhood friend Alex, that the moment that I heard Depeche Mode, like,
Mm.
kind of everything changed. Like, I'd loved lots of music before, lots of diverse kind of music, but hearing that kind of changed everything for me. Did you ever have an album like that just the world seemed different after you listened to it? Was
Yeah,
that
so like,
Oasis?
no. So like I loved all of that stuff, but I remember the first time like music kind of hit me in terms of like an emotional connection. I think my brother used to play loads of music when I was growing up as well, and he used to always play Bob Marley, and he used to always play Legend, and he used to like smoke weed, so it was like a constant thing. He was just stoned all the time and would play this album, and I just remember like being like, I would be like goosebumps at times, and I'd be listening to it, and I didn't understand. I was like connecting with it and getting something from it,
Yeah.
and that album has stayed like that throughout my life. That's been a constant, and that's happened since then with loads of bands. But I remember that the Bob Marley thing was the first time I heard an album, and it kind of made me listen, like think about the words, think about how it made me feel, and this was like. This is before I decided I wanted to be in a band. This was like pre the Oasis thing.
Yeah.
But the Bob Marley, and I said that stayed with me. Me and James have like covered Bob Marley songs at gigs and did things since then. So yeah, probably that. But then like even later in life, like I remember the first time I heard Violator, and I was just like, like. So we worked with Flood on our second record,
Yeah.
who made Violator, and we worked with him because he did Violator, and it was so again like there is like seminal albums throughout your life, I think, where things come in, and that's been why I've probably had a few albums like that, and that, yeah, Violator for me was just massive.
You have a brother. You've got James is kind of like your brother DNA wise. Your mother and his mother are twins, so that kind of makes
Yeah,
you brothers. Did you find that you got a lot of music that way, like through family or siblings, or did you find that it was something that you just kind of discovered on your own?
it was definitely through other people when I was younger. So, like I said, so my mum would always have music on. Um, my brother was always playing music, and then I must have got to about. So I started playing music with James when I was 15, and at that point he would introduce me to like loads of stuff. Because he used to be a professional football player, so he used to have to drive to football every day. So he would have loads of CDs in the car. So when we
Yeah.
started playing music, he would have like all the CDs that I wanted to hear, which was amazing. So at first, I mean, even now, James is the one that like will send music to people and go, "You need to listen to this; it's really good." But it's always been a family thing. I think I'm quite lazy at trying to find new music if it's not
Yeah.
in front of me.
Yeah.
Particularly like now, I've got a kid and that, like you said, but before it was always James. James would make CDs for the band for like each of us with like songs that he thought we would like. And he's always been right with certain things. Like he made me a Beach Boys CD once, and he was like, "You're going to love the Beach Boys," and I was like, "I don't get it. I don't get it." And then like a year later, I was like, "Favorite band ever," and like he knew that would happen, but it just took a bit of time. Um, but yeah, he was always like the instigator of introducing us to music. Although saying that, our manager Denise, so James's sister manages a band, and um, Denise was actually quite a big influence with music. She used to listen to Kate Bush and stuff like that, and like a lot of hip hop music. So there was always different pockets of things happening that was really interesting. It was never like, and the thing that I liked with my family was it was never like avant garde. It was always like the big Pink Floyd, Bob Marley, you know, Queen. Or it was always like the big mainstream acts, which is a really easy
Yeah.
way to get into things rather than and then you would go away down rabbit holes. Then I got Spotify in like 2008, And at that point, that's when it was just like you said, things just go when like you can find artists through other artists because people tell you about music, so then it's
Yeah.
dead easy to find it and go and explore it. But for me, finding music has always been like a family process, which I guess is I feel really lucky for that because I know that growing up, like not every family's like that. They don't
Yeah.
always have that like a cultural push to like be interested in certain things, but like my house, like my mum and you seem really similar. There was just always music on. There was always music on the background, and it was loud. It wasn't even that it was
Yeah.
like, it was loud. And I guess having that kind of education. And that's a fun. Sorry, I'm going to go on a tangent here, but it's really funny.
Yeah, go for it.
Even
This is what it's for.
so when I listen back to like some of our early records and demos of things, I can hear like little bits of songs that me and James used to hear in my mum's house. And like
Yeah.
little chord changes and things that maybe he doesn't even realise that he did. The songs and like all of those little influences, I guess, come
I kind
together.
of hear it in harmonies when you guys are doing harmonies or things and you're doing backing things. I can kind of hear that influence
Yeah,
there.
yeah, and like even like so, I hate singing. I don't even know if James enjoys singing. James had to be the singer because we couldn't find another singer. But there's definitely a thing there. I think because we are family and when we sing together, that it sounds quite good. I
Yeah.
think that's it.
I think you could just maybe understand each other as well. Maybe can read each other's energies.
So me and James agree on everything and it's spooky. So when we're in a studio, if I'm thinking something, he'll say it first. If he's thinking something, I'll say it first. We've just got, and I don't think it's anything other than because we've did this for so long and we've got the
Yeah.
same tastes. We've got totally the same tastes. We like the same things, the same kind of sounds are like exciting to us. So for a player, so he used to have to drive to football every day, so he would have loads of CDs in the car. So when we
Yeah.
started playing music, he would have like all the CDs that I wanted to hear, which was amazing. So at first, I mean, even now, James is the one that like will send music to people and go, "You need to listen to this; it's really good." But it's always been a family thing. I think I'm quite lazy at trying to find new music if it's not
Yeah.
in front of me.
Yeah.
Particularly like now I've got a kid and that, like you said. But before it was always James. James would make CDs for the band for like each of us with like songs that he thought we would like. And he's always been right with certain things. Like he made me a Beach Boys CD once, and he was like, "You're going to love the Beach Boys," and I was like, "I don't get it. I don't get it." And then like a year later, I was like, "Favorite band ever," and like he knew that would happen, but it just took a bit of time. Um, but yeah, he was always like the instigator of introducing us to music. Although saying that, our manager Denise, so James's sister manages a band, and um, Denise was actually quite a big influence with music. She used to listen to Kate Bush and stuff like that, and like a lot of hip hop music. So there was always different pockets of things happening that was really interesting. It was never like, and the thing that I liked with my family was it was never like avant garde. It was always like the big Pink Floyd, Bob Marley, you know, Queen, or it was always like the big mainstream acts, which is a really easy
Yeah.
way to get into things rather than and then you would go away down rabbit holes. Then I got Spotify in like 2008, and at that point, that's when it was just like you said, things just go when like you can find artists through other artists because people tell you about music, so then it's
Yeah.
dead easy to find it and go and explore it. But for me, finding music has always been like a family process, which I guess is I feel really lucky for that because I know that growing up, like not every family's like that. They don't
Yeah.
always have that like a cultural push to like be interested in certain things. But like my house, like my mum and you seem really similar. There was just always music on. There was always music on the background, and it was loud. It wasn't even that it was
Yeah.
like, it was loud. And I guess having that kind of education. And that's a fun. Sorry, I'm going to go on a tangent here, but it's really funny.
Yeah, go for it. This is what it's for.
So when I listen back to like some of our early records and demos of things, I can hear like little bits of songs that me and James used to hear in my mum's house, and like
Yeah.
little chord changes and things that maybe he doesn't even realise that he did in the songs, and like all of those little influences, I guess, come
I kind
together.
of hear it in harmonies when you guys are doing harmonies or things and you're doing backing things. I can kind of hear that influence
Yeah,
there.
yeah, and like even like so, I hate singing. I don't even know if James enjoys singing. James had to be the singer because we couldn't find another singer. But there's definitely a thing there. I think because we are family and when we sing together, that it sounds quite good.
Yeah.
I think that's
I think you could just maybe understand each other as well. Maybe can read each other's energies.
so me and James agree on everything, and it's spooky. So when we're in a studio, if I'm thinking something, he'll say it first. If he's thinking something, I'll say it first. We've just got, and I don't think it's anything other than because we've did this for so long, and we've got the
Yeah.
same tastes. We've got totally the same tastes. We like the same things. The same kind of sounds are like exciting to us. So it's like, yeah, that's always worked as well. It's, yeah, I mean, and that's rare in a band, I think, for people to agree to that kind of level. So
How do you guys choose like the different covers that you do? Because you guys have done some great covers. Some of the covers you've done are some of my favorites. How do you guys choose the covers? Does somebody come and say like, we should cover this song?
that's always just whatever James has been listening to. So like I think the first one was probably like "Be My Baby," and that's the one that's consistently went through, and that's great, and we totally love that. And then
The
we
Words
did,
That Maketh Murder is a fantastic cover. PJ
yeah,
Harvey.
James was loving PJ Harvey when we did that, so we were like, let's do that. And then we did "Everybody's Got to Learn Sometime," the Corgis
Yeah.
song.
Yeah.
We were actually going to do Roy Orbison. It was either Roy Orbison or the Corgis, and we were in
I'm
New
glad you
York.
did the Corgis.
What a song that is as well. And then, do you know what? So we've done some mad cover stuff. So we covered the whole Oasis album, "Be Here Now." Just me and James.
Really?
Just we did a reggae version, a doo-wop version of a song. This was like in the halcyon party days where we'd be like 3 a.m. Let's do an Oasis song. So like, James has got that on a hard drive somewhere. Like we used to just love doing little covers because that's what we used to do when we started the band. We didn't have any songs, so it was all covers and stuff. And so yeah, we've did mad stuff like that. I think the covers thing's a really good thing to do.
Yeah.
And James was a really good friend of ours. Angela passed away a few weeks ago. It's probably a couple of months ago now, actually.
Yeah, I saw that.
And she came on stage with us at Tea in the Park in 2009, and we did the Proclaimers song "Sunshine and Leith," and that was just like, that was incredible. So James went to LA, and it was like a little like a kind of, it was like a night for Angela, and
Yeah.
he went and did that song for her, and it was absolutely incredible. So there's always been a weird thing with covers, that we've always like appreciated a cover and what it can do. And we did Stir It Up, the Bob Marley song, a few
Yeah.
times as well. So that was all of them.
Is there a cover that you want to do? Like really, really want to do?
I don't know, actually. Do you know what? I'd love to see James singing Taylor Swift for some reason. Don't think he'd ever do it. I can't really see James singing "Shake It Off." I don't know.
That's funny.
It would be funny.
Now, I think that I think it's like really awesome when anybody's a musician. I always say that because I think that people putting stuff out there in the world, and it can help people, it can make people feel better, it can bring people comfort. I think that's a super cool thing. However, you guys got to do something I think is super awesome. It's like one of those things that not everybody in the world gets to do, and definitely not every musician gets to do. But you got to go play in a rainforest to a pygmy tribe of in the Amazon. That I think is the Urani tribe. How did this come about? I know it was for a TV show, but how did this come about? Because that has got to be, I think, one of the coolest experiences I think that people could have.
Yeah, we thought it was a joke, right? So our manager, Dean, we were on tour in Europe, and he came out one night and he said, "Oh, there's this offer came in for a TV show. You can go to Ecuador, you'll make music for a week. It'll be great, it'll be really good." And then that was the last we heard of it. And we were like, yeah, that sounds pretty good. Then he turned up like on the last night of the tour, and they said, right, flights are booked, everything's ready to go. And we were like, what are you talking about? So we thought we'd be staying in hotels. We thought we'll fly into the camp every day, we'll leave and we're going to stay in a hotel. No, we were living in hammocks with tarantulas, with cheetahs running about during the night. Like, this was like wild, right? So, yeah, so a little bit of backstory. So we get invited to go and make music with the tribe, and there was different. So us, the Happy Mondays, there was different artists get asked to go and to like a different tribe around the world. So we get invited to go to the Borani tribe, and the backstory was that people wanting the oil off the land had been going in, and there's been like big wars going on for years. So they kill each other, and it was quite violent. Yeah. So they wanted us to go in to try and help raise awareness of what was going on with them, to try and get more support off the government in America. because it was these big American oil companies. So we were like, of course, this sounds great, let's go and do it. And it was just like one of those mad experiences that I think, it sounds dramatic, right? But I think it changed me in a lot of ways, because like, if you want something to eat, you can go and open your fridge, or you can go to the shop and buy something, right? When you're in the jungle, you have to go and catch it. You have to go and find clean water to drink. Like, so we had to go hunting with them to get food to eat for us. It was it was a mad experience. So that aside, making the music work with them was like bizarre, because what they do is they chant. They do like chants and dances, and they're naked when they do it.
Yeah.
We were all dressed in black in the middle of like the rainforest. So they must have thought we were like bonkers. But it was a mad experience, like a mad experience. Like, and even looking back on it now, like at the end of it, we managed to get a song recorded with them. I'll need to send you. Actually, it's fantastic. I don't know if it ever get put out, but it's really, really good. But there was just like so many mad things that happened on that trip. So like, our crew who'd like go around the world with us, they came so they could record it and set up the equipment. That they get robbed at knife point. Like when so they had to take all the equipment down the river, and it was like a 3-day journey, and they get robbed at one point. When we turned up, do you know who Bear Grylls is? You know, the adventure guy, Bear Grylls?
Yeah.
The guy who advises him and does all of his shows was our guy. So when we turned up, he said, right, there's a clan war going on between the different tribes, so they're attacking each other. So here's what you do. If you get attacked, run in the water. There's alligators, but you've got a better chance in the water than you do with the tribespeople. We're like, so our manager Dean was there, and we were like, what have you got us into? What is going on? Right? Then we realised there was like poisonous spiders and things running about trying to eat dogs at night, and it was just like, wow. But I think for me the big thing was like appreciating what you've got from that, because like these people were so happy. These people were just like, they loved their lives. And I remember when I got there, our lives are like so different. And one day me and Paul went hunting with them out in the boat, and I could see the men like doing this and talking, and I said to the interpreter, what they're saying, and he's like, oh, one of them had a fight with his wife last night because he wanted sex and she wouldn't have sex with him. And I was like, things are not so different between like normal people, and when they started explaining all these things, their lives are like really similar, but just a lot more simple. So that was like that was mad. That was mad.
Were you the first white people they'd seen?
No, so I think they've had people visit them for about 50 years, but they do like a little tourism thing, so they do get some people going in. But the funny thing with the tribe and the people was that they acted like rock stars. Like they were so confident and so like just like they would swagger about every day. Like there was no like curiosity, because they were like, we're the people, like we're amazing. I'm like, it was bizarre. It was a really bizarre thing, and I've had those kind of experiences before. Like I've been to China and I've been to Korea, and because I'm 6'4", people like I thought I was going to get stabbed on the train one day, but it was because people had never seen somebody that tall. I think so. They were just in terms of the tribe, no, it was like a bizarre thing. Like they were very self-confident. They, I think some of them had left before to go to New York to try and like do some stuff to protect their area and stuff. So they'd definitely seen things, but the funny thing with that tribe was that it was the women that were in charge, which I didn't know that. Right? So the women were like, there was one girl in particular who would just shout at everyone, you go, and that kind of worked for them. Yeah, again, I'm going off on tangents a bit because I'm remembering all these things or something. But no, they weren't like shocked that I was going in, and I thought they would be. Yeah, I thought they would be. But like they played football and they would run about, and it was all quite normal. The one thing that was strange was I took my iPad with me, and it was fully charged. And I would show the kids movies on the iPad, so they'd never seen like an explosion, they'd never seen these kind of things, and they were just like. And then the next thing I knew, like I'd have the whole tribe watching things. So like there was those kind of moments where they were like touching it as though like, is this real? Is this really happening? But because the tribe had did a few of these kind of exchange things before, where people would go in for a TV show, and they kind of got taken advantage of.
Yeah.
So I think they were a little bit wary of that with us. I think after a couple of days, they knew that like we were out playing football with the kids in the fields. Like we weren't like trying to do the whole camera thing, and I think they could see that. They knew that it wasn't like a big thing. So they like when we were leaving, a lot of the elders came up, were giving us gifts and saying thanks, and we've seen how nice you've been with the kids and looking after the kids and all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Okay, well, when you played music for them, how did they respond to that?
They had never heard anything music wise before out with them singing. So to them, they were looking at guitars like, "What is this?" So like I've got a photograph of one of the tribesmen, and I put my guitar on him, and he started playing guitar, and they were all laughing. But like our drummer Jon at the time would show them how to play the drums, and we were just like trying to show them little bits, and we had like little tambourines and stuff, and they absolutely loved it. But it was definitely a new experience. I mean, those things are weird, not just for them, but it's like, can you imagine like somebody doesn't know who Elvis is? You know, like going somewhere that they've never seen musical instruments before. It's like bizarre. So I think God knows what they thought about us, what we were doing, but yeah, they were definitely they were more taken aback with the instruments and the noises than they were with us as people. Definitely.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to get from like the airport to the village? I imagine it's probably like not next to the airport, is it?
You know, I don't like flying. Yeah, this is
Yeah.
like my thing where this has been the bane of my life since I've been in the band, right? Because I can avoid flying. I can only do it once a year and I go on holiday, that's fine. But with the band, I've always need to like flown places. So with Ecuador, we had to fly from Glasgow to London, which was fine. London to Ecuador, which they gave us business class, which was fantastic, right? So that was okay. Then when we landed in Ecuador, like Ecuador was a dark place. I was quite surprised. Like it was loads of poverty, loads of poverty. So when you get off the airplane, you drive through the slums till you get up to Quito, which is the capital. That was like the discrepancy, and like that was quite horrible to see actually. Then we got to Quito, did an overnight there, and then the next day we had to fly from an airfield, and it was like a little 4-seater plane. 5-seater plane, which like I've never been in before. So it was like missionaries who would fly supplies into some of these villages for the different tribes. So they were taking us out. And the guys who were recording the documentary realised that I was terrified of flying and started like going over and shaking the plane, going, "Oh, do you think it's safe?" They were just trying to get a reaction out of me to get on the camera. And I was just like, not today. Not today. So yeah, we had to take off in this tiny little plane where when you were flying that low, you could open the windows whilst you were up. Like it was just a bizarre experience. But they didn't have a runway to land on, so we had to land on grass. And it was like just before you hit the ground, an alarm goes off in the plane. It must be like you're nearly going to. And I remember just being like, thinking we're going to crash or something. But that was quite a scary experience, to be honest, getting there. Like, that was like 4 flights, a couple of like 5-hour journeys. It took about a day and a half, 2 days to get there.
Wow. And when you were in the hammocks at night, was like it's still inside like a big hut at least, or were you just out in the open?
Yeah, out in the open. So I don't want to throw James under the bus here, but James refused to sleep in the hammocks. James likes a life of luxury sometimes. So we had to put the hammocks up. We had to do all of this on our own. And as soon as James saw a tarantula, he was like, "I'm out." So what was they had a hut for the production crew, and James slept in the production hut in a sleeping bag. Like Dean had to take like a suitcase full of fizzy juice for him, and like sugary sweets. Like because James needs to have a can of juice with his dinner every day. Like he just needs like Iron Brew or Coca-Cola. So I think James struggled with that trip quite a bit. And I think the hammocks.
Did you take breakfast?
Do you know what? I didn't, but I had some whiskey in a little hip flask. But yeah, James struggled in that trip. So there was like no showers. You couldn't shower, so like it was just like wet wipes, and you know, I mean, it was really basic. Things like that. And then because there was like tarantulas and things like that, you had to put socks in your shoes at night because they were like, you'll wake up, there'll be things in your shoes. You know, so it was like I woke up one night. So we were in a hammock, but you would have like a net round about it so nothing could get in. You're out in the open. It's like an open. It's like a roof, but there's no walls. and then like you would wake up and there would be like something crawling down the inside of the net, and you just have to like hit it off. But there was cheetahs going about at night because they had some chickens, so the cheetahs would run about, but then you'd hear the dogs barking and chasing them, so you'd kind of know you had to be on guard. But it was fine.
That sounds so crazy, but at the same time, that's having done it and moved past it. That's just got to be an incredible, like probably one of the top experiences.
Do you know what it really is? And like sometimes I forget how good the actual experience was. And it's weird. It's like coming from Glasgow. It's like you think you've experienced everything because it's mad
Yeah,
here, and then you go there and you think, no, like that's mad. So, and I
yeah.
think for me, when I have like experiences like that, always makes you reflect a little bit. I think on like your own life and being grateful for things that you've got and all of those kind of things. And I think that was definitely like one of the takeaways from that. But the funny thing was, we got a lot of people like on social media saying, "Why did you go to that tribe? You're taking advantage of them, and you know they don't want you there." Like we didn't get paid a penny; they get paid a small fortune, which is
Yeah,
good because they needed the money
yeah.
for lawyers to fight their case. But like, it's just funny how people's automatic response is, "You're taking advantage of those people." Yeah, but that obviously wasn't what it was.
And it's, we're in this kind of day and age where people have a lot of opinions that are not backed by anything, right? So I just say move on. Um, I don't mean to point this out, like, but I kind of do, because I think it's really, really cool, and I don't mean to embarrass you, but like I mentioned before, you are Dr. Rab, and you join and I know that you would say, oh yeah, lots of people go and get PhDs, but it's still pretty freaking cool
Yeah.
to be a musician, to go get a PhD. You join um, people like Brian May, astrophysicist, from Queen, Greg Gaffin, I think is an evolutionary biologist from Bad Religion. Dexter Holland is, I think, a molecular biologist. Um, Sterling Morrison from Velvet Underground, I think I think he did medieval literature. Jeff Schroeder from Smashing Pumpkins does comparative literature. How does it? What made you decide to go and pursue a PhD? Because this wasn't prior to the band. This was like in the middle of the band. You decided to go do this. What made you decide to go do that?
So it's like it's a really weird reason. So like I've only ever really did the band since I left school. So that was really all I had known. I didn't really do very well at school, and that was due to my like commitment to music, where I just as soon as I found music, kind of gave up on the school thing. So it must have been about 2014 or 15, and I started feeling quite like unfulfilled for some reason. I was like, I was like, I want to achieve something on my own because everything I'd achieved at that point was with a group of other people,
Yeah.
and it was like a group effort. But and I don't know why I started feeling like that. It was a strange point in my life. I think I was starting to think to the future and like, where am I going? Because I'm not going to do music forever, so I need to start thinking about other things. So I thought, I'm going to go and get a degree. I'll go and get a degree. It'll take me a year. The band's not touring just now. Right, that's a good idea. So I did that, and then I realised that I really enjoyed it. And then I went back for another year and got my honours degree. And then I did another year and I got my masters. And so I totally believe in like karma, being in the right place at the right time, meeting the right people. And so I met a guy when I was at the university called Lyle, and he was managing an artist called Joseph, who's like really blown up in the UK and America. He's like a soul artist. He's phenomenal. So when we were doing the masters together, Lyle said to me, "Can you introduce Lyle to your manager Denise, and can I meet her and maybe she can help us?" I was like, "Of course." So I did that, and then he said to me, "By the way, there's this PhD that I think you should apply for. I think you'd be really good for it." And I had no intention of doing a PhD. To me, that was like otherworldly, like beyond
Yeah.
anything. And I was like, "Do you know what? I don't know what I'm going to do next. So I might as well go and do an interview for it." It was like an interview process. So like fast forward a few years, Joseph has signed like a massive £1 million record deal because I put him in touch with Denise. Because of Lyle, I'm doing this PhD. It's like a weird thing. Like I'm like the luckiest guy in the world because it's like anything I try and do, I seem to do it okay. And I don't think it's through talent. I think it's through perseverance more than anything.
Yeah.
Like I think it's a Scottish thing. I'm really stubborn. I hate losing, but I pretend that I'm okay losing all the time. See, like if James beats me at football, it doesn't matter. But it's not. I think it's, and you'll probably find this with your wee one as well. Like as he grows up because of his thing, like he'll be like that, and I think it's like I think that's the thing that's always pushed me. So I never aspired to do a PhD, never aspired to do any of these things. And then like halfway through the PhD, obviously yeah, I had a slump because of COVID and it was difficult. My PhD was on music, the music industry was shut. I was just like,
Yeah.
what am I doing? So like the fact that I've actually come out the other side of all of that with my doctorate is just like I'm really proud of myself. And I don't say that lightly because I don't feel that about a lot of things.
Yeah.
I think with this, because I know with my limited uh, educational ability, that's the best way I can say it. Like, I don't read very well. I'm not a good writer. I'm not good at, but what I've got good ideas. So it just
Yeah.
takes me longer to do things. So I feel like I've had to work a lot harder to get that done. And then because it's actually in music and so I mapped and measured the Scottish music industry, which is pretty cool. So I looked at like what the Scottish music industry was made up of, what it's worth, different things, value, economic, social, cultural value, different things. And it was just like super cool. I mean, it was an education for me about music. So I thought I knew how music worked, but going back to university, it just like opened like a different door that let me see things differently, which I think has been good for the band in a lot of ways as well. And me and our manager Denise get on the phone like an hour a day sometimes and just like talk rubbish about music and management and all these different things. So I think for me going back to like school was like the best thing I could have did, to be honest. Like, and as I said, it was a completely unintentional thing. I just wanted to
Yeah.
achieve it on my own. So
I was going to say, your mother must be so proud because, as you said, you were working class.
yeah.
You said that you grew up with not a lot of money, and yet here you are, Dr. Rab. Your mother must have been through the moon.
I think she still finds it quite hard to understand, and like James's mum as well. So it's like we've had some mad experiences, but because we've been so fortunate, our parents have been
Yeah.
fortunate in terms of their experiences. So my mum and James's mum come to a lot of the gigs. Like they come to gigs and they get so drunk and they're so happy and they have their best time. And it's like the thing is that is so nice for us to see them having the best time because it's like as parents you want the best for your kids, right?
Yeah.
But like my mum never pushed me into like you need to go and get a proper job ever. That was
Yeah.
never ever said to me. Even when I was like 24, no money, still living at home, she was looking after me. At no point did she ever say, "I think it's time." You know, she was just
Yeah.
like, "Keep doing your thing. Good things will happen." And I know James's mum was the same. So like I think everything we've got is kind of because of what they've did for us and being that open to these experiences. Because coming from like a working class upbringing in Glasgow, but you don't get success. These things don't happen, you know.
Yeah.
And it's like you just don't know people that anything like that happens to. So the nicest thing was in 2011 we were recording the demos for the second record in Los Angeles, and James brought his mum and my mum over to stay with us. That was a mad time. So like my mum like lost her shoes one night drunk, and like I had to take her to H&M the next day barefoot to buy her shoes. I'm supposed to lose my shoes. I'm supposed to
Yeah.
get drunk. You know, this is the roles have reversed. Uh, but it's
That's
just
awesome.
been. I think the whole experience, even take the PhD out of the equation, the whole experience of being able to experience these things like with our parents has just been like absolutely amazing. So
Yeah,
good.
I mean, I've heard you tell stories of, your mom parting with Liam and Noel. Well, not parting, but them
Oh,
looking out for her, and that's pretty cool.
honestly, like I walked in the bath. So when we were in tour with Oasis, I walked in the bathroom and I said to my mum, it was like it was like a big venue, so it was like a shower room. So what you doing? She's putting a lipstick on. She was like, "He's a millionaire, son. He's a millionaire." And I was like, "What do you think's going to happen here?" Like honestly. So I mean, there's just so many things like that. Like, yeah. I mean, God bless her. She's amazing.
Do you think that do you kind of look forward to kind of discovering music with your son? Are you kind
I
of
do.
looking? Is it?
Yeah, like a big time. The thing is, he loves music just now, but what he likes is like he loves playing instruments. So I've got guitars lying about. I've got a little
Yeah.
piano he plays. He's got a music box, but he loves like, and I think so. When I was doing my PhD, I always had classical music on. I always had like instrumental music, different movie soundtracks, and he seems to really enjoy that just now more than anything. So what I'm starting to do is when we're out in the car, I'm putting songs on and trying to sing along, and I can see him getting his little like bop on. He's getting his
Yeah.
little thing. But yeah, like I'm so excited to like being able to say like, have you heard this band? Because obviously, like the way you will, you've got like this vast knowledge of music. So like when you find out what your kids' tastes are, that must just be like the most amazing thing to go. Have you listened to this yet? Have you listened to this? Like you must have did that.
He reminded me and I totally forgot about it, but he's like, Mom, I played something for you the other day. Or not the other day, but it was like, he's like a couple of months ago and you sat and cried. And I'm like, why did I cry? And I put it out of my head. And he's like, because you said you were sad that this was the kind of stuff I was listening. I'm like, why don't you go listen to this kind of rap? Like, go and listen to some old school rap. Like, I don't know what this is. I said, this is like a lot of autotune. And he's like, Mom, you were outright crying.
Was it shock? Was it disappointment? Were you upset? What was it you were feeling?
Yeah, that's what I told him. I'm like, I would think that you would have better music taste than this. Like, but then he kind of like explained a little bit of it, and I'm like, I can kind of get what you're listening to. But then he showed me other stuff, and I do get surprised like when I see that he's listening to some old stuff. Like I was kind of surprised the other day when he was like listening to Sade, and it wasn't anything from my playlist, but I'm like, oh wow, that's cool that he's got an appreciation for Sade. Like I thought that was pretty awesome. So sometimes he has that. I mean, it surprises me some of the stuff that he likes. We hear old songs. Sometimes we just have like the music playing in the background and some old song comes on and we'll literally just drop everything and just dance to it for a second.
Mm.
We don't say anything. We just kind of like dance to some old song. And then we like maybe Fleetwood Mac comes on, we'll dance for a bit and the song stops. And then we just go back to whatever we were doing, not having said anything. And so like, I love those moments I live for, like
Yeah,
absolutely live for, like
yeah.
super, super cool.
Yeah.
You teach now at uni.
Mm-hmm.
How does, obviously some of your students are going to know what you do. Do they think it's cool?
So I thought they would find it cool, and like I think it's an age thing and a generational thing. So like for me, because the band only happened 16 years ago, but that's like another generations came through since then. So like the people I'm teaching are kind of anything from like 18 upwards, and a lot of them are like super young. So like I always go in and be like, well, this is what I do, this is the band I'm in, this is the experience I've had, and you can see people going, okay, and then they'll go away, and then maybe a couple of lessons later they'll come back and go, oh, I checked out your band, yeah, it's pretty good. And then like we'll announce like some big gigs, and they'll be like, oh, I see you're doing those festivals and those, and it's like, yeah, the teaching thing is not what I expected it to be. It's a lot harder, to be honest, but I really enjoy it because it's all the things that I'm interested in, and the teaching thing is a great gig because it means I can get time off to go and do the shows, which is really fortunate. Like I think that's the thing just now for touring musicians, see having like a side hustle. And the thing is, the teaching thing for me is not even a side hustle. It is like that is a massive thing, which is amazing. But yeah, I've been doing that now for a few years, and it's kind of been gradually getting more and more teaching to like what I did this year, which was quite a lot. I was looking after some big projects for people. And
did you have any more questions, Desmond?
I do. I'd like to know a bit more about the PhD. Well, not so much the PhD, but how it's affected your feelings about music.
So the PhD is more business related than anything to do with like, it's not like a musicology thing. So it's definitely changed my approach to being in the band in terms of from a business perspective, because what I've had to do is go away and investigate all these different sectors, look at how they're made up, look at how they interact with each other. So if you're going to release a record, how does that work and who do you need to do that? How all that stuff works together. Looking at how that works in Scotland versus, say, another country. So it's opened up my eyes. I've got much more respect for other people that work in music now. I think that's a better way to say it. And I think just people in general who work in the creative industries are like, they've got it quite tough because a lot of the time it's not like full-time jobs. You know, it's like a little bit of a job here and a little bit of a job there, and somebody will go and do a couple of things here, and it's difficult to live your life like that, I think. And I didn't really think about that because, like, being in the band, you think, well, everybody's got a job and it's fine. So I would say that I've definitely got much more respect for the business side of it now.
Before you did your PhD, you were just raw music,
Yeah,
and now you've studied it. Has that changed you at all? Has it changed your perspective of anything to do with music?
yeah. I mean, it's definitely changed me a lot because I think that I feel like, so the thing with being in a band is there's always a worry that that's not going to last. So in terms of doing the PhD, I didn't do it so I had like a fallback plan, or so I had something else. But knowing that I've got that now, I feel like a much calmer person. And I don't know if that's just a getting older thing, that I've just, you know, like as you get older, you relax. But like I used to be quite neurotic, quite anxious. And maybe that came from a creative place. Maybe that came from a place of like not knowing when you were going to get paid next or whatever.
Yeah.
But definitely, like as a person, I feel like I'm much more grounded now since doing that, and I feel much more sure of myself
Yeah.
moving forward.
And
Which
you have that safety net too.
it's that, and I think it's also because I feel like I've did something on my own, and I've did something that's really difficult, that a lot of
Yeah.
people find difficult. So like, although I'm super proud of the stuff I've did with the band, which I've did it with, like, it's almost family. I mean, that's family, but it's like I've did that with them. But as I said, it was like to do this on my own. It's definitely. I think the thing for me is like experiences. Big experiences always change me because there's something inside of me that goes, "How did that affect you? What did you learn? How are you going to move forward from it?" And I don't know why I do that. I think there's definitely there's. I mean, I've definitely got a bit of autism or something, or ADHD, because I'm like, my thought processes are just like quite bizarre.
Do
And
you take like stuff that you've learned and do you take it back with Denise, and do you and Denise sit and talk about how the stuff that you've learned can better help the band?
yeah, but not in that way. Like, I think we should do this, but I think that me and Denise have got amazing relationship, but there's like a big level of respect there. So there's been times where I've went to Denise and says, "Why are we not doing these things?" And she's been like, "Do you know, that's a good question. Why are we not doing these things?" So then we'll start trying to do different things, because the thing with Denise is like, and again, I'm going to go off on a tangent, but Denise is like one of my most favourite people in the world. Like, she's
Yeah.
absolutely amazing, and she is so integral to what happened with the band. I'll give you a quick 2 minute summary with Denise, right? So Denise is James's sister. Denise had an
Yeah.
amazing career in social work with a girl named Geraldine, who the song is named after. So Denise saw us playing a gig one night and decided that she was going to quit her job and go part time, move in with James, sleep on James's couch, because she believed in the band so much. So like, Denise had never managed a band, had never did anything like this before. So this is the thing I was talking about earlier, but like everything is just ramshackle the way we did things.
Yeah.
So Denise gave up her career essentially to do this for the band, because she believed in the songs that he was writing at that time. So like, flash forward, like Denise is still doing this just now. She's got 2 kids. Her husband works in music. He goes away travelling around the world with bands. Somehow she manages to still manage us, look after 2 kids, keep a house going, do all of these things. So I think I mean, it must be difficult for Denise trying to do all of that. So sometimes naturally, if I go and say, "Well, what about this?" is something you just not think about things in the same way that like I won't think about things sometimes. So I think she likes that company of somebody phoning her, wanting to talk about things as well. Like, I probably think I'm being a nuisance and like being like, "Why is this not happening? And why are we doing this? And what is happening with these gigs?" But and I think through doing the PhD, like, I've learned so much stuff that Denise already knew. So I
Yeah.
feel like I'm coming up to like her level, that we can have like these kind of conversations where there's like a respect thing there, that, you know, well, oh, you actually know these things, and like there's things I've told Denise about that's helped her, and then Denise will tell me about things from my PhD that I've used. So yeah, I think that's definitely, and that'll probably continue. Like, do you know, maybe I'd like to manage bands actually. Maybe I'd be good at that. I don't know. Maybe that's something I could look at. I'll
I
keep on.
managed a band. I'll probably have that some people in the band on that. I managed a punk band a long time ago, and I just found out like, I mean, those early days it was like really tough because we got banned from places like just because too many people showed up and the venue was like, you guys can't play here anymore. I mean, there's some crazy stories, and I stopped like after a year. I'm like, I don't want to do this.
See some of the crazy stories of things that we did in Denise and Dean. So we've got two managers, Dean and Denise. Dean is James's stepdad and James's sister. See some of the stuff we did. Like, we get banned on the TV. We nearly get thrown off a U2 tour. We got thrown off a Kings of Leon tour. Like, we were wild. So you're talking about like your wee one being like a bit. We were wild. Like, honestly. So the stuff that Denise and Dean have had to put up with us, and the fact they're still willing to try and manage the band, is insane.
That's
Really.
crazy.
So,
Have you guys ever had, because you're a family, do you tend to have, would you say, like less headbutting, or is there equal headbutting when it
the
comes to
band's
just
biggest strength has always came from everybody knowing what their role is and not going into somebody else's lane. Do you know what I mean? You can like suggest, or you can. So it's like me, James, and Paul have always had the exact same relationship. It's just it works. We've never had a fight. We've never fallen out. We've had disagreements where you go, I don't think that's right, or whatever, creatively, but that's fine. But never to the point where it's like other bands falling out. We've never argued over money. We're quite boring that way, I think. But I think it's like you kind of need to respect what people bring to the table, and what we all brought to the table like 15, 16 years ago is the exact same thing we bring just now. And for that reason, it works. And like I see other bands, and it was funny, I was reading something the other day about, do you know what it was actually? It was last night. I watched the new Beach Boys documentary on Disney, and there was a part they were talking about, and I get quite emotional watching it. They were talking about how at one point they had a fight over the money because the dad had sold the publishing and Brian was still getting some publishing, and Mike Love had wanted some of the money, and he should have got some of it because those rights get sold. And I was just like, and I started thinking about me and James and Paul, and I was like, I don't think I'd ever do that. Like, I could never sue somebody I was in the band with. But I know there's loads of other bands that are like that. Like, you know, loads of bands, you must know about loads of infighting and people and things like that happening. And being in a band is like being married to people. And I think you need to know when to give them space, and you need to know when to give them a little hug. And that's just something I don't know. I mean, maybe I do know why. Like, we were all best friends before we were in a band. So we used to hang out, go out. We did that for maybe 2 or 3 years before we were even in a band. So I think having that foundation there has probably had some kind of positive impact. And then
do you think that strong foundation also took you over those times that it could have gone bad? And when I say it could have gone bad, I mean, you know how it is. You get signed, you get a ton of money thrown at you. You're young. It could go bad. And it does go bad for a lot of bands.
So we were always like a gang, and that it was the band, and it was the band against everybody, you know. And we always read it that. And I think sometimes with bands, I think if you're not got like a secure unit inside, little voices from other people can come in sometimes. So like the record company would sometimes come to like me and be like, do you think we could maybe change this person who's working with the band? And I would be like, don't ever say that again. Like, he works with us, whereas other people would maybe say that, and then there would be little things happening, and like that happened quite a few times, and like the band just had each other's backs 100%, and continue to. And I mean, I think that's quite a rare thing to have in music, but like we never cracked, there was never anything like that. And I mean, there was times were tough. You know, like there's been the most amazing times, and then there's been super tough times. And we've managed to get to this point. So like, I think if we've got to this point, I think we're going to be okay. You know?
Do you guys like playing now more than you did 16? Is it different when you're playing now? Are you like more relaxed, more, you've been doing this a while, you know your strengths, you know how to be with each other? Is it just more fun now?
Do you know what I enjoy most? And this is going to sound like I don't enjoy music, and that's not true, because I love doing the gigs, but I just love hanging out with the guys, because we don't get to do it a lot now because we've got families. So like when I get to hang out with them, like I get really excited about it. And it's just a shame we don't get to do it more. But like, James is a better person now. He's married and he's got kids. He's just a better guy. Paul's a better guy because he's got kids, and I'm a better guy. So it's like having those experiences outside the band has definitely made the band, I think, a better place to be in. Next week, so you know the World Cup's on, the Football World Cup. So me and James get invited to go out and do a couple of like acoustic gigs. And Paul was like, I would like to have went to that. So Paul's going to fly out with us and just have a party. Paul's not playing any gigs, he's just coming to get drunk.
Nice.
That's the kind of relationship that we've got, like that we all just want to be together. So like, but in terms of playing gigs, I still feel as when I step on stage, I feel like an animal. I've not lost that that thing where like I want to prove to you that like we are like the best band in the world. I've still got that, like it feels like a violent thing sometimes. Like before I go on, I get quite like worked up about it. But it's like I think sometimes I see bands and they go on and they just go through the motions and they just play the notes they're meant to play. And I'm like, I would rather have a bad gig, but put everything into it. And like after gigs, we're exhausted. We are like done in after gigs. Like it's not something that like I take lightly. I've always felt like going on stage to play a show is like going to war or something, which sounds pure dramatic, right? But it's like I feel like I need to win these people over, even if they're a fan of the band. I want them going away saying that was absolutely incredible, and I'm going to go back and see them again.
You know, you guys did a show online. In the midst of all that, and you played in a converted church, and it was actually Angus's like first concert, like that he got to like. So we were watching that, and that for him was it was different, you know, to see that was his first concert. So, and you know this, like my first concert was Beach Boys. My dad took me to see the Beach Boys, and it was at Jack Murphy Stadium in San Diego, and that was really awesome. But for he'll always have Glass, and it was totally fitting because just mad crazy love for the band. And then he found out that everybody was Star Wars fans, and like Molly wasn't, but I think she is now.
Yeah, she been converted. That's okay. Like Shannon hates Star Wars. Shannon doesn't like Star Wars at all, and like I've got so much Star Wars stuff in the house.
I know that you got to run because you've got it's family day, but this is so awesome that you came on and did this, and hopefully maybe you'll come back.
I would love to come back. It's really nice to actually like see you in person and speak to you. It's been so. I know
I'm such an introvert. Like it's I talked about doing this for a long time. I think it was like Billy was the person that told me like 2 years before he did his podcast. He said that I yap a lot because I was leaving voice when COVID happened. Like people were on different timelines and I wasn't like talking to my friends and I was like missing my friends. And so I thought I'm just going to start leaving voice messages. And I would like leave these like 30-minute to hour-long voice messages and Billy would say, they are really long. And I'm like, I had a lot to say and I don't talk to you a lot. So they were just really long. And he's like, it's like a podcast. He's like, you should do a podcast because you're really good at yapping. And I'm like, I'm really good at yapping at people I'm comfortable with. So, so I just had this idea. And Anuj is great. Like he's been pushing and reposting all these and it's just been getting crazy followers, not followers, like listens.
Listens, yeah, that's great.
So it's different, but it's just casual. I just like talking about music and I thought Angus would like to, and it's all his friends have been listening. So I think that's actually like a good thing.
That's quite cool.
They're like, yeah, I think it's cool. I think his friends are listening. And so that's really cool. But thank you so much for coming.
Not a problem at all, honest. Not a problem at all. So nice to see you. And nice to see you as well, Desmond.
Yeah, nice to meet you, Rab. It's been very interesting listening to all your stories and fascinating.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I did.
So what's your plans for the rest of today?
It's almost like the end of the day, so I'm just going to probably go hang out with the rest. I got to finish a couple of different things because I'm about to release an episode with my friend Jake. Cool. So just doing that kind of stuff. So say hi to Shannon. Love Shannon. Next time I'll bring the snails on because I think that people would be shocked. Desmond, if you don't know, we've got a giant snail. He's about this big. It's an African land snail, and he's like 7 years old now. And his name is Big Rab because he's the biggest of all the snails. But
I was actually going to say he's the biggest of all the Rabs.
No, he's the biggest snail, but he won't stop laying eggs, which tickles Shannon to death because every time I would just send Shannon pictures, I'm like, look, Rab's got more eggs.
That's brilliant.
I will say one more thing. The only shit talking that I've ever heard from members of your band about each other is just your football
Yeah.
clubs.
Well, that happened yesterday. The football was on yesterday. My team did not win, so
That was my
Desmond Rab
granddad's
is the
team. Yeah, my granddad's team
Rangers.
lost.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, did your granddad Gordon like the Rangers?
yeah,
Oh,
that's
nice.
his team. Yep.
That's his team. However, James does say you're the best at FIFA.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Is it Paul?
No, it's James. James is
Oh,
James kids on. James is like, I mean, I'm not very good. He knows how to do everything. How to do everything. So.
all right. It was good seeing you. I'll talk to you
Okay, guys.
hopefully
Thank
again
you.
soon.
Thank you, Rab.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Rab. All right, so he's off, so I don't even have to
Do I
do
need to go
anything.
and come back? That seems to be.
I don't think so. We could just leave you on here, right?
I was being sarcastic.
I can cut it separate. So why didn't you isn't it funny we have the same color on?
Yeah.
But I look at and it kind of the same color scheme.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Is there anything to wrap up? I love Phil Collins. I used to get so much from everybody for loving Phil Collins, but I love Phil Collins.
Do you know what it was? It was do you remember the Live Aid gig where he I think he went on first maybe, and I remember hearing him sing, and I was just like, what a voice that guy's got! Like what a voice! So even if you don't like him for anything else, that's fine, but like respect. Yeah.
For I think a big chunk of the reason, and I talked about it on another podcast, is like that was the first CD that we got as our house. But when CDs first came out, it was like $39.99. It was like a lot of money. And so after that, my parents were like, we're not getting any more CDs. So that's like all we had was like one Phil Collins CD. Did you have any more questions, Desmond?
I do. I'd like to know a bit more about the PhD. Well, not so much the PhD, but how it's affected your feelings about music. Do you listen to music with a different frame of mind now? Has it changed how you look at music or listen to music, or do you still have that instantaneous joy when you hear something new that you like?
So the PhD is more business related than anything to do with like it's not like a musicology thing. So it's definitely changed my approach to being in the band in terms of from a business perspective, because what I've had to do is go away and investigate all these different sectors, look at how they're made up, look at how they interact with each other. So if you're going to release a record, how does that work and who do you need to do that? How all that stuff works together. Looking at how that works in Scotland versus, say, another country. So it's opened up my eyes. I've got much more respect for other people that work in music now. I think that's a better way to say it. And I think just people in general who work in the creative industries are like, they've got it quite tough, because a lot of the time it's not like full-time jobs. It's like a little bit of a job here and a little bit of a job there, and somebody will go and do a couple of things here. And it's difficult to live your life like that, I think. And I didn't really think about that, because like being in the band, you think, well, everybody's got a job and it's fine. So I would say that I've definitely got much more respect for the business side of it now.
Before you did your PhD, you were just raw music.
Yeah.
And now you've studied it. Has that changed you at all? Has it changed your perspective of anything to do with music?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely changed me a lot, because I think that I feel like, so the thing with being in a band is there's always a worry that that's not going to last. So in terms of doing the PhD, I didn't do it so I had like a fallback plan, or so I had something else. But knowing that I've got that now, I feel like a much calmer person. And I don't know if that's just a getting older thing, that I've just, like as you get older you relax, but like I used to be quite neurotic, quite anxious. And maybe that came from a creative place, maybe that came from a place of like not knowing when you were going to get paid next or whatever.
Yeah.
But definitely, like as a person, I feel like I'm much more grounded now since doing that, and I feel much more sure of myself.
Yeah.
Moving forward.
And you have that safety net too.
It's that, and I think it's also because I feel like I've did something on my own, and I've did something that's really difficult, that a lot of people find difficult. So like, although I'm super proud of the stuff I've did with the band, which I've did it with like it's almost family. I mean, it's family, but it's like I've did that with them. But as I said, it was like to do this on my own. It's definitely. I think the thing for me is like big experiences always change me because there's something inside of me that goes, "How did that affect you? What did you learn? How are you going to move forward from it?" And I don't know why I do that. I think there's definitely there's. I mean, I've definitely got a bit of autism or something or ADHD because I'm like my thought processes are just like quite bizarre.
Do
And
you do you take like stuff that you've learned and do you take it back with Denise, and do you and Denise sit and talk about how the stuff that you've learned can better help the band?
yeah, but not in that way. Like I think we should do this, but I think that me and Denise have got a really amazing relationship, but there's like a big level of respect there. So there's been times where I've went to Denise and says, "Why are we not doing these things?" And she's been like, "Do you know that's a good question? Why are we not doing these things?" So then we'll start trying to do different things because the thing with Denise is like, and again, I'm going to go off on a tangent, but Denise is like one of my most favourite people in the world. Like, she's
Yeah.
absolutely amazing, and she is so integral to what happened with the band. Because I'll give you a quick 2 minute summary with Denise. Right, so Denise is James's sister. Denise had an
Yeah.
amazing career in social work with a girl named Geraldine, who the song is named after. So Denise saw us playing a gig one night and decided that she was going to quit her job and go part time, move in with James, sleep on James's couch because she believed in the band so much. So like Denise had never managed a band, had never did anything like this before. So this is the thing I was talking about earlier, but like everything is just ramshackle the way we did things.
Yeah.
So Denise gave up her career essentially to do this for the band because she believed in the songs that he was writing at that time. So like flash forward, like Denise is still doing this just now. She's got 2 kids. Her husband works in music. He goes away travelling around the world with bands. Somehow she manages to still manage us, look after 2 kids, keep a house going, do all of these things. So I think it must be difficult for Denise trying to do all of that. So sometimes naturally, if I go and say, well, what about this? Is something you just not think about things. In the same way that like I won't think about things sometimes. So I think she likes that company of somebody phoning her wanting to talk about things as well. Like I probably think I'm being a nuisance and like being like, why is this not happening? And why are we doing this? And what is happening with these gigs? But and I think through doing the PhD, like I've learned so much stuff that Denise already knew. So I
Yeah.
feel like I'm coming up to like her level that we can have like these kind of conversations where there's like a respect thing there that, well, oh, you actually know these things. And like there's things I've told Denise about that's helped her, and then Denise will tell me about things from my PhD that I've used. So yeah, I think that's definitely, and that'll probably continue. Like, maybe I'd like to manage bands actually. Maybe I'd be good at that. I don't know. Maybe that's something I could look at. I'll
I
keep on.
managed a band. I'll probably have that some people in the band on that. I managed a punk band a long time ago, and I just found out like, I mean, those early days it was like really tough because we got banned from places like just because too many people showed up and the venue was like, you guys can't play here anymore. I mean, there's some crazy stories, and I stopped like after a year. I'm like, I don't want to do this. This is
See
too
some of the
much.
see some of the crazy stories of things that we did in Denise and Dean. So we've got 2 managers, Dean and Denise. Dean is James's stepdad and James's sister. See some of the stuff we did. Like we get banned on the TV. We nearly get thrown off a U2 tour. We got thrown off a Kings of Leon tour. Like we wild. So you're talking about like your wee one being like a bit. We were wild. Like honestly. So the stuff that Denise and Dean have had to put up with us, and the fact they're still willing to try and manage the band is insane.
That's
Really.
crazy.
So
Have you guys ever had, because you're a family, do you tend to have, would you say, like less headbutting, or is
mm,
there equal headbutting when
the
it comes to
band's
just
biggest strength has always came from everybody knowing what their role is and
yeah,
not going into somebody else's lane. Do you know what I mean? You can
yeah,
like suggest, or you can. So it's like me, James, and Paul have always had the exact same relationship. It's just it works. We've never had a fight. We've never fallen out. We've had disagreements. We go, I don't think that's right, or whatever, creatively, but that's
yeah,
fine. But never to the point where it's like other bands falling out. We've never argued over money. We're quite boring that way, I think. But I think it's like you kind of need to respect what people bring to the table, and what we all brought to the table like 15, 16 years ago is the exact same thing we bring just now. And for that reason, it works. and like I see other bands, and it was funny. I was reading something the other day about. Do you know what it was? Actually, it was last night. I watched the new Beach Boys documentary on Disney, and there was a
Yeah.
part they were talking about, and I get quite emotional watching it. They were talking about how at one point they had a fight over the money because the dad had sold the publishing, and Brian was still getting some publishing, and Mike Love had wanted some of the money, and he should have got some of it because those rights get sold. And I was just like, and I started thinking about me and James and Paul, and I was like, I don't think I'd ever do that. Like, I could never sue
Yeah.
somebody I was in the band with. But I know there's loads of other bands that are like that. Like, you know, loads of bands, you must know about loads
Yeah.
of infighting and people and things like that happening. And being in a band is like being married to people, and I think you need to know when to give them space, and you need to know
Yeah.
when to give them a little hug. And that's just something I don't know. I mean, maybe I do know why. Like, we were all best friends before we were in a band. So we
Yeah.
used to hang out, go out. We did that for maybe 2 or 3 years before we were even in a band. So I think having that foundation there has probably had some kind of positive impact. And then
Do you
because
think that that's strong foundation also took you over those times that it could have gone bad? And when
there's
I
been,
say it could have gone bad, I mean, you know how it is. You get signed, you get a ton of money thrown at you.
yeah,
You're young. It could go bad.
like,
And it does. It does go bad for a lot of bands.
so we were always like a gang, and that it was the band, and it was the band against everybody. You know, and we always viewed
Yeah.
it like, and I think sometimes with bands, I think if you're not got like a secure unit inside, little voices from other people can come in sometimes.
Yeah.
So like the record company would sometimes come to like me and be like, do you think we could maybe change this person who's working with the band? And I would be like, don't ever say that again. Like, he works with us, whereas other people would maybe say that, and then there would be little things happening, and like that happened quite a few times, and like the band just had each other's backs,
Yeah.
100%, and continue to. And I mean, I think that's quite a rare thing
Yeah.
to have in music, but like we never cracked, there was never anything like that. And I mean, there was times were tough, you know,
Yeah.
like there's been the most amazing times, and then there's been super tough times. And we've managed to get to this point. So like, I think if we've got to this point, I think we're going to be okay. You
Do
know,
you guys like playing now more than you did 16? Is it different when you're playing now? Are you like more relaxed, more you've been doing this a while? You know your strengths, you know how to be with each other. Is it just more fun now?
do you know what I enjoy most? And this is going to sound like I don't enjoy music, and that's not true, because I love doing the gigs, but I just love hanging out with the guys, because we don't get to do it a lot now because we've got families.
Yeah.
So like when I get to hang out with them, like I get really excited about it. And it's just a shame we don't get to do it more. But like, James is a better person now. He's married and he's got kids. He's just a better guy. Paul's a better guy because he's got kids, and I'm a better guy. So it's like having those experiences outside the band has definitely made the band, I think, a better place to be in. Like next week, so you know the World Cup's on, the Football World Cup. So me and James get invited to go out and do a couple like acoustic gigs. And Paul was like, I would like to have went to that. So Paul's going to fly out with us and just have a party.
Nice.
Paul's not playing any gigs, he's just coming to get drunk.
Nice.
That's the kind of relationship that we've got, like that we all just want to be together.
Yeah.
So like, but in terms of playing gigs, I still feel when I step on stage, I feel like an animal. I've not lost that that thing where like I want to prove to you that like we are like the best band in the world. I've still got that, like it feels like a violent thing sometimes. Like before I go on, I get quite like worked up about it, but it's like I think sometimes I see bands and they go on and they just go through the motions and they just play the notes they're meant to play, and I'm like, I would rather have a bad gig but put everything into it. And like after gigs, we're exhausted. We are like done in after gigs. Like it's not something that like I take lightly. I've always felt like going on stage to play a show is like going to war or something, which sounds pure dramatic, right? But
Yeah.
it's like I feel like I need to win these people over, even if they're a fan of the band. I want them going away saying that was absolutely incredible, and I'm going to go back and see them again.
You know, you guys did a show online in the midst of all that and you played in a converted church,
yeah,
and it was actually it's like first concert like that he
really?
got to see, like so we were watching that, and that for him was it was different, you know, to see that was his first concert. So And you know this, like my first concert was Beach Boys. My dad took me to see the Beach Boys, and it was at Jack Murphy Stadium in San Diego, and that was really awesome. But for his, he'll always have. I know that you got to run because you've got it's family day, but this is so awesome that you came on and did this, and
Not a problem.
hopefully maybe you'll come back.
I would love to come back. It's really nice to actually like see you in person and speak to you. It's been so,
I know I'm such an introvert. Like, thank you so much for coming.
not a problem at all, honest, not a problem at all. So nice to see you. And nice to see you as well, Desmond.
Yeah, nice to meet you, Rab. It's been
Yeah.
very interesting listening to all your stories and fascinating.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I did.
So what's your plans for the rest of today?
I had a skateboard at that time because my mom bought a skateboard like when I was like 5. And she bought a skateboard because Farrah Fawcett had a skateboard in some ad, and mom like loved all that, right? So she was really down for that. So she had a pink skateboard. And so I in turn got that pink skateboard after like the fad of her, like she decided like she was not going to skateboard. It wasn't, she didn't have like the long legs of Farrah Fawcett to skateboard. So like she didn't
Did she ever
skateboard.
try? Did she have a
Yeah,
go
she
on it?
tried.
Oh,
Of course she tried. Like she
if
actually
only
had,
we had videos back then. If only we had smartphones.
you know what? She
I'd
has
love-
got a crazy lore that you don't even know about. She's like, she was a person that would like come home. She bought a motorcycle, like a fold up motorcycle that you could put in the trunk of the car. Like she was driving around in a Corvette Stingray. Like she had a Dodge Stealth. Like this woman's got crazy lore. Like people would never expect if they heard. Like the people that have known her for a long time know, but she's got crazy lore, this woman. And now her nickname is just the Godmother. Like everybody calls her the Godmother because she's a bit badass. She's the woman that can get things done, like in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Like with like literally when stuff is happening in the neighborhood, like when like a pipe is busted under the road and they've called, public utilities and they're not coming, they'll come to her and like, hey, can you make some calls? And she does, and people show up and then some, so she's like, and her power really lies with stubbornness. That's her power, and resilience. She will just keep calling public works again and again and again, but eventually it gets done.
Yeah. So those two traits are traits which you also possess in large quantities. How much of that do you think is genetic, and how much is influenced or inspired by your mum?
I think it's like threefold. I think that it's genetic. I think that it's inspired, but I also think it's just due to circumstances in life that you see a problem come at you and you think of. She and I, even though you would say in those sense we're similar, we're kind of exact opposites. Like we approach things in a completely different way. Like we see a problem, completely different way to approach it. And sometimes she's right and sometimes I'm right. And I think that I was talking about that. Like it's the same thing with why a lot of my closest friends and the people that are closest to me tend to be very opposite of me, because I think that if I'm always with people that are like-minded, I lose sight of the bigger picture. So I kind of need that bigger picture. Sometimes I need what I don't see. For me, the best way to kind of attack a problem or solve a problem is to see the things that I can't see, which is why sometimes I have somebody else look at it, or I'll ask for somebody else's advice, because it's like, what am I not seeing?
Yeah.
And I think that that's helpful in life, and I'm not afraid to ask for somebody to give some eyes on it. I won't ask somebody to do something though, and that's because I'm a control freak.
This is a deliberate pause.
Just like crickets. Just
yeah,
crickets.
So many things I could say there that I'm holding in. I was literally biting my tongue.
You could
Yeah,
just add cricket sounds to this afterwards. Just...
yeah. No, when I asked about the resilience and the stubbornness, they are good traits to have in most circumstances. I wasn't trying to imply they're negative traits at all.
I mean, it can be negative. I mean, I know that my stubbornness can be extremely a bad thing. I know it drives a lot of people around me. I know it drives them bonkers
But
because I'm
I
like,
think
I'm
I think
so stubborn.
you mix that with the open-mindedness that you mentioned before. If you're 50-50 about virtually everything, I think that balances out, or not balances out, it enhances the stubbornness in a good way and helps you to make correct decisions.
I mean, no, I mean, I make my fair share of mistakes. Don't get me wrong, like my fair share of mistakes. But if like you bring, like if we bring Marty, my best BFF, like he will tell you that. Well, he always says I'm a paradox. That I'm two extremes, and I think that that's pretty true. Like I literally am like wear all black all the time, or wear extremely bright colored clothing. You
But
know,
that's
I'm
yeah.
that. I mean,
Would
just
you rather be zero paradoxes? Would you rather be predictable? Would you rather be boring, predictable?
I don't
Everyone
really think
knows what
about
you're
it
going to
at
think.
all. I don't really think about it at all. It just that doesn't really factor. It just do me.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to be comfortable doing me. Um, I would say probably I was probably like in my 30s before I felt comfortable doing
Yeah.
me. And it's not like I'm like a super 100% comfortable. Like
Yeah.
I've expressed to you a million times, like I would scrap all like the first edit I did for the first podcast, and it's still a funny thing where it's like 56 minutes and you edited down like 2 minutes out of it, and I gave you back my edit and it was like 35 minutes were left, and you're like, what happened? I'm like, I just took myself out because yeah, there's still stuff
Yeah.
I think is ridiculous about, I think everybody's like that. We all have our insecurities. I don't like to hear the sound of my voice.
Mm.
I don't like to look at video of myself.
I
See,
think
I've
that's
gotten
not
smarter.
that.
I just hide behind this giant contraption you've given me now, and I feel a little
Yeah.
bit better.
I think that's not true. I think some people are way too comfortable in their own skin. They like the sound of their own voice. They think their way is the only way.
I say sometimes I lose faith in humanity a lot of times because I see things, you
Mm.
know, and for a while it was exactly what the news was showing you. I decided a couple of years ago to stop watching the news altogether because I realized that how I was feeling was effect on the content somebody was creating for me. Because that's what the news was. It turned into being a content creator type thing. It wasn't the Edward R. Murrow, Walter Cronkite kind of views of this is the facts. This is what happened. I'm not going to give my opinion or bring a bunch of somebody's to give their opinions for the next 23 hours. This is just what happened.
Yeah.
And I think that for a while, I remember when I was younger, just kind of that 24 news cycle starting and moving out, of into your first apartment, like out of high school and stuff, and kind of sometimes being alone and having that was an easy 24-hour news cycle. Just okay. And then you felt like at the time, okay, well, I'm getting educated of what's going on in the world. That's what it seemed like at the time for me,
Yeah.
not for everybody else. It's like, okay, I'm now I know what's going on in the world because I don't have time to read the papers because I'm going to university. I'm doing this. I'm kind of keeping up with the world. And so that almost became a habit growing up of like, okay, I'm going to leave the news on. And then there was this news channel, that news channel. But then now you start to have left-wing news channels and right-wing
Yeah.
news channels. And you don't kind of realize it. In the same way that somebody doesn't realize that you've been eating a lot of fruitcake over the holidays, like an enormous amount of fruitcake, and it doesn't seem like a lot, but then suddenly you step on a scale in January and you realize that you ate a lot of fruitcake. It like
Yeah.
crept up on you. But it's like that. It's like you didn't have bad intentions.
Yeah.
You were just
Yeah.
enjoying the fruitcake. I don't miss it. I find that life is so much better removing that out, and I'll follow like AP or Reuters on Twitter or on, it's not Twitter anymore, but
Yeah.
or on Instagram, I'll kind of search out that news and see what's going on. But all the news I just got rid of.
Yeah. Well,
But
it is.
the stuff that I get now.
If something is important, you will find out.
Yeah.
No, you don't need it shoving in your face.
Did you ever watch all the the original Planet of the Apes?
I was just talking to someone about this yesterday because there's an advertisement for Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, the new one.
Yeah.
Which is that. And I said, how many of these apes movies are there now? No, because I liked the first one, as in the original Charlton
Heston.
Yeah, and I liked the second one because it was kind of the same thing but underground.
Yeah.
After that, I lost track of it a little bit. I tried the Mark Wahlberg revamp.
Yeah.
Now I've got no idea how any of them fit in sequence. Like the new one, I don't know if it's a remake, if it's a continuation, if it's a prequel. I have no idea.
I'm obsessed with the original ones, like super obsessed. When I was a kid, the Betamax had just come out. And if people don't know what the Betamax, they were a smaller version of the VHS. And I don't know why it took off. It didn't take off for whatever reason. It just didn't take off. So for me, it was like I had E.T., I had Rocky, and I had all the Planet of the Apes. And so you can see why I'm obsessed with Rocky these days, because it was just like Rocky, watching it over and over and over. But Rocky is, and I will say it again and again, the greatest character ever written for film. Hands down, in my opinion. And the greatest, this is going to be controversial, dramatic series for film. Dramatic.
Well,
I'm not talking to like science fiction. Science fiction, I'm hands down Star Wars. No question about it. Everybody knows I'm a massive Star Wars fan. Like massive, ridiculously massive. But Rocky's such a great character. I mean, there's so many wholesome things, and he's just a good person. And I think that I would say, and I'm going to attribute a lot of the way that I look at the world based on Sylvester Stallone. Thank you, Sylvester Stallone. Maybe someday I'll have Sylvester Stallone on here, because no, it's the greatest character ever written. Like, honestly, yeah. Rocky's just like a good guy. Like even when he has an opponent, he's got respect for his opponent. And I love that. I think that that's such a huge thing, respect. And I think that that's a trait. If you're asking me what we're missing so much from modern times, it's respect. That's the biggest thing. That's honestly just the biggest thing, like just respecting each other. Like respect is gone. And it's quite tragic and sad to me. Because we each all have these awesome super stories, even if they're hard and difficult, our stories. What makes them awesome is that whoever experienced them and got through them to a point where they can retell their experience and their story. And perhaps maybe somebody benefits from it. Somebody relates to it. Somebody is comforted by it,
Yeah. I think part of the way I look at life is, you should be nice to everyone, because you don't know what the other person's going through.
Yeah.
And to assume that everyone's having a good day or having a normal day is ignorant.
Yeah, absolutely. I say this all the time. Like whenever, like even when we're going by the toll, I go by a toll place or a place where somebody hands me some kind of a ticket and I'm driving through, I always say thank you. I always say hi. And it's sad to me that sometimes they're shocked. They're like absolutely shocked. And I'm thinking, man, how many people have gone by and not said like hi or thank you to you? That you're, and you could see like the whole change. You could like actually see it like on their face where they kind of like brighten up, like somebody acknowledged their existence. They're not just and I'm not saying that I'm like some superhero or anything, but I'm saying that's all it takes is just a basis of like respecting your fellow earthling.